Hey, welcome back to the Connor Larsen Show. I am pumped for this episode. This is a fun one. This episode is going to be about Craigslist and why Craigslist is actually the greatest website we have. I know that sounds insane, but it's more what Craigslist represents. But I think you're really going to like this episode. So thanks everybody. Everybody seemed to like the bees episode, which I kind of I had a feeling people like bees. Bees are cool, as we went over. So, I'm back from, I was on the road this weekend with my buddy Dusty Slay. Thanks to everybody who came to the Dallas and Houston shows. We had a great time. The shows were very hot. I love hanging out with my buddy Dusty. I got to say this. I love Texas. It's a great place. I love going there. I've done tons of comedy there. The cities themselves, not super beautiful. I had this moment where I was like, Texas, I've been to a lot of parts of Texas that are beautiful. I've been to West Texas and even the parts of East Texas that are pretty heavily forested and there's some beauty out there. But man, downtown Houston, not a lot of beauty in there. There's some homeless guys in wheelchairs who are using the street like a bathroom near our hotel. I did see that. That was a nice Houston hello. But no, I mean, my cousins grew up in Houston. I've been there a bunch. Dallas and Houston are cool cities, but every downtown I go to, it's like, it's like the end of the world. I realize it's insane to judge a town on that. Like if people go to downtown Nashville and then they go, you know what's crazy about Nashville? And I go, hey, listen, I live here. I don't go downtown for anything. One of my friends would have to be missing and they'd be like, we saw him last downtown. That's the only way I would go downtown. But yeah, we had a great time. We did an old beautiful theater in Dallas, and then we did a theater on the campus of University of Houston in Houston. And I'm telling you, I'm not that old, but you put me on a college campus and I go, I'm 1,000 years old. I don't want to be on a college campus that I'm not going to. It makes me feel old. That's how every time. But we had a great time. We found regular coffee in Texas, which we struggled to do the last time. So that was great. And me and Dusty had a bunch of fun. Thank you everybody who came to the shows. I'm back home now, and it's I'm having a blast. This is such a great time of year. It's so nice. I finished the Yakasugi bed. It's done. It's full of dirt. It took me 7,000 wheelbarrows of dirt, but it's in there and it's full. So we're gonna plant some crops in there, and then that video should be up this week of all the whole build process, and that was very fun. So I'm pumped about that. This episode is about Craigslist this week, right? It's because I know a lot of people here have probably gotten used to it being mostly gardening or nature and all that stuff. And I love all that stuff and I'm going to keep doing it. But I'm just doing with this podcast, just whatever I get into that week, before I had the podcast, I would just find myself, going down these rabbit holes. And this has allowed me to kind of make them structured and organized and hopefully, other people will enjoy them too. So, I was reading this thing about the guy who started Craigslist, whose name is Craig. And Craigslist is the best website because it never got crazy. It just stayed a useful, good website. It's what the internet was supposed to be. People go, I want to sell a couch. People on there go, I need a couch. And then they find each other. There's no ads. There's no memberships. There's no anything. It's just Craigslist stayed what it was going to be. And when you look at the internet today and businesses today everywhere, it's really, my favorite thing about Craigslist is just that they didn't just go, what's the most amount of money we can make no matter what happens, which is, I feel like the most common approach to business. And the further I looked into this, the more I was like, yeah, I love this. They just kept it, the crappy website with the blue links, the purple text, nothing. They never made it better. And people all the time have been trying to get them to make it better. And they have been trying to make it like every other website or every other app or every other thing. I mean, here, like just to give you a sense of how different Craigslist is, they don't harvest any of your data. They don't keep track of anything. They won't let you can't pay to move your thing up the search. They don't do anything where if you use their thing, you can't sell other places. Like, Amazon will, if you're selling on Amazon, the best price you have has to be on Amazon. It's like their policy. So Amazon actually kind of drives the prices up for everybody because they go, this has to be your lowest price on Amazon. So then you have to set that price that way everywhere else. I'll get into all that stuff later, the differences between them and other companies. But I mean, it's just, Craigslist is a very simple website, right? You go there, you put up links. It's like Facebook Marketplace but there's nothing promoted. There's no game in the system. And it's not Facebook where they are keeping track of lots of things. So it's just a great website. And the guy who started it is a guy named Craig, I liked Craig on a personal level because not that I've never met the guy and I sound insane saying that, but I'm saying when I read about him, he was a 42-year-old guy who worked for Charles Schwab, and he's the biggest dork in the world. He talks about, how he's like, when I'm talking to people, I'm trying to simulate human behavior. He's a tough hang, is what it sounds like. But I think he's great. I've listened to a few podcasts about him and interviews. But he was a 42-year-old, and he was working for Charles Schwab doing customer service, which it's gonna come back up. It's a big part of the story. And then he moved to San Francisco. He started making a newsletter of just stuff going on. This is like 1996. And he started sending it to friends. And then everybody was like, this is great. I really like this. So then he's just trying to build community. That's the original goal. And then he keeps, kind of growing it. And then he realizes that he can change the way that the website works so that you could put hyperlink text and all this stuff so that it becomes more useful. And then he tries to rename it after it's kind of gotten around his friends, and people were like, listen, we're already calling this Craigslist because it was Craigslist of stuff. So that's how it becomes Craigslist. Then he makes it, more useful for people. People can sell stuff. It grows into what we all know as Craigslist. And he just never changes it. So the website starts 96. In 2000, he removes himself from the whole company. He turns it over to a guy, and he said, I just realized I wasn't that good at making these decisions, at running this like a business. And he locks himself out. He's like, the one rule is I can't interfere. And the founder, Craig, all he's done for since 1996, he just does customer service for Craigslist. So there's a lot of stories about if you sent an email or a complaint to Craigslist, he might just call you. Like, there was a real chance you were going to get the CEO on the phone. And his whole thing was, he was just like, you just got to treat people like you want to be treated, which again, that's what you teach babies. And so he would just call people and figure it out. And look at all the other parts of the internet. The idea that anybody involved, most companies, you can't get someone who works for the company to talk to you. Like, if you call Delta and go, hey, you canceled my flight, they go, we're going to put you on the phone with this person in what is clearly a call center, and then you just yell at them until you feel bad because you realize this isn't their fault. It's like if one of your cousins broke something of yours, and then they go, here's the system, you scream at your other cousin, and you go, well, I'm not going to. It doesn't make any sense, that most customer service is so no accountability. This company is a CEO calling you, being like, hey, what's wrong with Craigslist? What's wrong with this website that has no features? So I love that. And I love that it's not, the whole website is just a basic, useful thing, right? It's just a marketplace. It's a neighborhood marketplace. You can just sell stuff. listen, a lot of, I got a roommate off Craigslist once, and one time I came home and he was cleaning his gun in the living room, and I was like, all right, this is, I'm not saying Craigslist was always great. I'm sure, I know there was crazy stuff on Craigslist, but you got to zoom out from that and just remember, they built this website. It was useful for people. It became profitable, and then they didn't ruin it. That's the key feature, right? Is that every other thing that comes out starts out really great. It starts out really great until you're dependent on it, until you can't leave because you need it, and then it gets crappier. Well, there's a whole cycle of how this happens that smarter people than me have defined that we'll get into. But yeah, I love that the Craigslist, it's this guy is just, he's a billionaire now. He did sell the company, but he sold it in a way where he made like $1 billion, and they were like, well, you could have made 12 if you would turn this thing into a profit generating machine like every other website, right? You sell banner ads, you sell You sell people's data. You make them get memberships. You say if you become a pro Craigslist user, we'll bump up the rankings of your couch. All this stuff. And the guy is super aware of this. He talks about it, and he's like, I'm just not going to do that. I'm just going to keep this thing the way it is. And I just think it's so remarkable where it's like, it was interesting to me to read about, the reason there's no user reviews on Craigslist. You can't review a seller. You can't give feedback. You can't, because all these things eventually get gamed, right? It's like how every company now, they like mess up your delivery, send you an email being like, we delivered it. And you're like, no, you didn't. And then they go, do you want to take the survey? And you go, no, unless I can say you guys did a terrible job, I don't want to take the survey. Because they know that it's all just about, gaming the system. And so he realized we're not going to do that. We're not going to have sponsored, posts or feeds or any of that stuff. It's just going to be, here's a link for a couch. You need a couch, come get the couch. And it sounds like I'm, nerding out over this thing, doesn't matter. But to me, it's just such a refreshing thing to be like, you don't have to make the most possible money with everything. And the internet really could have been everything people hoped it was going to be. I mean, there are really cool examples on the internet of stuff that did go this way. Linux, the open source operating system, as opposed to Apple or Windows, it's free. It's free, and the guy could have made tons of money, but it's not. But it's an entire computer ecosystem that is free. If you want to add on to it, you want to make your own version of Linux, you can do whatever. I mean, people just make stuff, and then they go, if you find this useful, hopefully make it better and share it. And I just find it to be such a good part of the internet. VLC Media Player is it's like a Windows Media Player or iMovie or whatever. It'll play your video files, and it's free. The guy could have made lots of money, and he just said, no, we're just going to make it, community-based, useful, and just put it out there. And I love stuff like that. And Craigslist to me is the under the radar. We all make fun. As a comic, you hear about Craigslist all the time. Craigslist is like code for crazy person. You're like, I was on a dating site, as I call it, Craigslist. Like that's, there's a lot of jokes like that. And it's shorthand, but it really did avoid all the traps of, you look at every other. Well, let's just get into the other stuff, because I think it works better when you think about that, right? Where, you look at all these things start out, all these companies that are worth billions of dollars, they start out, they're great. They're really useful for you. You know what I mean? I remember when I got Facebook, when I was in high school or whatever, Facebook was great because that's where all your friends were. And Facebook was just you seeing your friends. And Instagram was just your friends' photos and all that stuff. And it was great. And it was a reason everybody was going to it. Honestly, you kind of Facebook and Instagram, the thing no one ever talks about, at least for my demographic and age, it was about like trying to, any social network was where you were going to, like, as a high schooler or a young college guy, you like met a girl at a party, got her number, or you like saw them on Facebook, or they added you on Facebook. It was a social thing. It really had a good, built-in reason to use it. So, they're great in the beginning, and then slowly over time, these companies, they're great. People like them, they grow, right? Then they go, we need to make money on this. A lot, because forever, remember, people were like, how is Facebook going to make money? How is all these companies that are great and like, change your daily life? In the beginning, everyone's like, how are you going to make money on this? How are you going to make money on the internet? And so they sell ads, they do whatever. They do stuff that we all don't really like that makes the product a little worse. Like YouTube used to just be YouTube videos. Right now it's, YouTube Premium is just YouTube videos. But otherwise you got ads, you got all this stuff. So they got to make money. They got to do memberships. They got to do subscriptions. They got to do all the stuff that we all kind of agree slightly makes the platform less. It's not as good as it was in the beginning, right? Everyone's like, the good old days of when it was just, YouTube was just this cool thing playing videos. And then so they have to make money so that they can, eventually this company is going to go public, right? They're going to sell it on the stock market and that's when you get a quadrillion dollars, where it's just some number where you can't even understand it. So they sell the company to all these people who now they can't just do what they want to do. They have to make money legally. There's like a fiduciary responsibility to make money for their investors. So all these companies then become even more focused on making money. The focus is no longer on making the product better unless making it better makes more money. But if you can just make more money by making the product worse, if you can just take a thing that was free and charge everyone $1 and they can't leave because it's they're already too much in there, that's what they do. So they make that's step 2, right? That gets a little worse so they can start making money. Then they sell these companies to these giant investors, and then now the company's in its third final stage. That's the stage where they go, we just paid $1 quadrillion for this. We have to make so much more money. And then they just turn the screws, and that's when everything gets way worse, right? Like if you look at all these companies, they're great in the beginning. Amazon in the beginning, it was crazy. You could just get, even just the books part. You could get any book you wanted. That's genuinely very cool. And then they used to operate at like a loss. A lot of these companies, I know Uber did. I don't know about Amazon, but a lot of these companies operated at a loss, and they were, only the funding from investors kept it going, but didn't make sense as a business. And then they get so big because they're great. They're offering this thing no one else is offering, that they kind of crush all the other alternatives, right? There's no competitor to Amazon. There's no competitor. Starbucks got so big that Starbucks was everywhere. It closed 1 million local coffee shops. And then now that Starbucks is the only coffee shop in town, what do they care, right? They just go like, well, the prices are going up. We're going to kind of not be that friendly, cool thing. Starbucks was cool. That's how old I am. Starbucks was cool at one point. It was like an indie coffee shop. Now it's like, McDonald's of coffee. But it was cool. And then it now became, terrible. So, I still go. I appreciate the egg bites. That is nice on the road, but, these companies, there's a guy who wrote a paper, called The Enshittification, which I think is a great baby name, of all these things. And it outlines all the steps I just went through, where it's like the reason, these people are all trying to maximize profit. So the cycle is, in the beginning, all these things are great for the people who use them. Then enough people get on there that they are that's the only game in town. You can't leave once you're there. You know what I mean? Amazon, Facebook, all this stuff. Like once you're on there, there's no getting off, because that's where your network is. That's what, any job you have today, you kind of have to, you don't have to, but any self-starting entrepreneurial job today. I meet guys who are carpenters, and they're like, the thing about YouTube, it's everything, you got to do it online. It's not really an optional part of society. So you have to get on there. They're good in the beginning. Then they want to make money. So it gets a little worse. And we all go, okay. Then they sell the company. They go public. It becomes this giant corporation. And now they have to make money. Like legally, they're required to, get every dollar. And so they do. That's what, you look at all the airlines. There's only 4 of them left. Shout out Spirit, RIP. I did some horrific comedy gigs that only Spirit flew to. But what do you think's going to happen now that Spirit's gone? They're not going to go great. There's less options for people. Therefore, we will be better about price. They'll go, listen, this is the only game in town. You want to fly this? It's going to go up. So it's just this incredible. Going back to Craigslist, Craigslist makes tons of money. I think the revenue is like $360 million a year. It does great. And there's guys like the CEO of StubHub was like, it could be a gold mine if they would like optimize it. And you're like, yeah, that's exactly how the guy who runs a ticketing company would work. Because tickets that's the worst thing. Right now there's the lawsuit with Ticketmaster, all that stuff, because every ticket's $10,000 for no reason. And then you see these horrible posters from the 70s that make you sad if you're my age, where they go like, see the Beatles, $8. And you're like, I want to do that. There's all these things that the focus is on maximizing profit. And it doesn't have to be that way. I know everyone kind of feels like it does. We all understand that's business is cutthroat, all that stuff. And people seem to trend towards just maximizing the profit. But it does, that's why it's so refreshing when you see something that isn't like that, where you go like, they're not trying to make the most possible money. I read a lot of articles about Craig and the guy from Craigslist. I think it's Craig Newmarket. I should know his last name. We're 20 minutes into the episode. But the problem is everyone just calls him Craig. You know what I mean? I'll put it in the show notes. It doesn't matter. His last name is List. That's what I believe. His name. But no, it's refreshing when you see like he's like, make a comfortable living, and then ever since he sold Craigslist, he does two things. He does customer service, and he gives away lots of his money. He gives away money to trying to bring back like real journalism, which good luck with that. And then that's like 50 other episodes. And then military families, that's a nice one, given that, I definitely think it's never bad to give them extra money. And then what was the other one? Civil Cybersecurity Defense Fund, which is like a cool charity that does stuff. And then pigeons. He likes pigeons. I thought that was charming. This guy likes 3 charities that make sense to most people, and then he goes, also pigeons. I like pigeons. But yeah, I just thought it was great to think about a company that just has said, this thing is good. People use this thing. People like this. We don't need to scale it up. We don't need to make $1 billion. Craigslist has no outside investors. It never sold. Actually, there was a cool story. At a certain point, eBay bought some of it somehow, and it was they were doing something where they wanted to start charging for stuff, and Craig gets in a legal battle with them, and 7 years go by, and eventually a court is like, you have to make more money. You have to profit. You have a duty to do this. And instead of doing it, he just says, fine, I'll buy eBay's stake out and just go back to it being a thing where I don't have to make the most amount of money. Which I love that. That's a great, it's a great thing. Here are the things that Craigslist does that all the other websites don't do. It does no banner ads, no sponsored listings, no user reviews, no algorithm, no personalization, no data harvesting. There's no venture capitalists. There's no IPOs. There's no acquisition, no redesign. It just stays a good, useful thing. I think that's great. I think that's so cool. And it's he also, when they ask him about how long he's going to do customer service, he says, death is my exit strategy, which I think is a great. I love that. I'm going to start saying that about comedy. Death is my exit strategy. But yeah, I did so the enshittification thing really was interesting to me because it's been out there since 2023. I'm not the first guy to discover this, but it was interesting to me, and it did explain a lot of what's going on. In the beginning, businesses are good to their users, then they kind of abuse you a little bit to make it better for the business, right? That's where they start charging you for stuff that used to be free. They start running ads. They start doing, you go, okay, I don't love that. Then once they have the businesses and the users, right? Okay, I'll try to illustrate this better. Amazon was great. You could get anything you wanted, and they kind of put the load on the businesses. They said, you got to ship them this book. It's got to be there in 2 days if you want to be eligible to be a Prime business, whatever. So now all the businesses have to get on Amazon because that's where all the users are. Then once all the users are there, the businesses have to get on there, so they don't really have to even worry about being nice to the businesses. But then once all the businesses are on there and all the users, now they can be terrible to both users and businesses because you're both stuck, right? You can't, as a user, you go, if I want to buy this thing, I got to go to Amazon. And if you're a seller, you go, if I want to sell this thing, I got to go to Amazon. And once you're there, they can just start going, hey, we're going to take a little bit from each of you, and there's nothing you guys can do. It's kind of the same phenomenon with all these things, right? It's like if Walmart comes to your small town and closes all the stores that used to sell you stuff, in the beginning you're like, well, at least I got Walmart, it's all there. I guess that's good for me, the user or the buyer. But then once Walmart is the only game in town, there's nothing you can do. And if you want to sell stuff in that town, like you're a manufacturer who used to sell to a hardware store or something, you got to go to Walmart. And Walmart can give you any price they want. You know what I mean? So Walmart can be bad to the manufacturers and the people who purchase. It's just this it's an issue of, it's too late. Their scale is giant. And then you also have, this is an interesting thing to think about with all these businesses. It used to be, right, like with a local business, it's sort of a two-way street. There's a bunch of local businesses I love. I love Gym 5 is the greatest gym in Nashville. Tower Deli, greatest restaurant in Nashville to me. Gold's Deli's great. That's down in Columbia. I like Arnold's Country Kitchen, Needham's Nursery, Zanies. These are all businesses where a person I know owns it, and they're great. And I find that it's very nice. I really value, I like getting a sandwich there more than just I like the sandwich. I like the whole community part of it. But the difference is if they start being mean to me, if I start walking into any of these restaurants, and when I walk in, they make pig noises at me, right? I don't know why they would do this, but I'm just trying to keep it fun. They start making pig noises at me, and they start calling me pig man. Pretty soon I'll stop going, right? And that hurts the business, and it hurts me. It's a two-way street. But if they are so, if there's a Starbucks where they start calling me pig man, even if I stop going, they're probably going to be fine because it's the only game in town. So it's this, again, they don't have to be good to you because they're too big to fail. I mean, they can't be harmed really. That's why these businesses, local businesses, if they stop making a beloved menu item, you can go to them and be like, hey, I love that. What are you doing? If a giant company changes something, they go, hey, the thing that cost $1 now causes $2. There's nothing any of us can do. And it's that sort of lack of, there's no feedback loop for the company. I guess there's profit and loss, but even then they can, as long as they're making more money, they don't care how you feel about it because you're not, you don't have to like this company. You still have to use them even if you don't like them. I mean, half the complaints I see about social media are on social media. They're all on social media. That's the only place I see complaints about social media. So you're just stuck. And I think, I don't have any solutions. I think that I can't imagine that you came here being like, this guy's going to solve it. But I just do think it is that's what I like so much about Craigslist. I like things like Craigslist, things like Wikipedia, things like, Linux and VLC, these things that, I'm not saying any of them are perfect, but they don't have an end goal of making the most possible money. And, that's sort of where I think these companies become bummers is a lot of them do amazing stuff. YouTube's amazing. Facebook's amazing. But they have this sort of legal responsibility to make money at a certain point. So that becomes their North Star where they're going, all we want to do is make money. And you're like, well, all right, but that's not great for all of us. And it leads to this, it's like McDonald's where I thought McDonald's was amazing when I was a kid. And I thought McDonald's was amazing when I was in high school. I know the food is like crazy. It's like made out of, styrofoam or whatever, but it's good. And it seems like people in the 70s thought it was even better. It seems like these things get so big that they inevitably have to get worse. And it's just a short-term thinking thing, right? Where if everyone didn't kind of go, well, you have to just, make the most money you can at all times, you could really make things better long term. If you could just not do that every single time with every single business or product, it would allow you to do lots of cool stuff, but they have these pressures of like every quarter you got to make the most money, and you gotta get the most money for your IPO, and you got to get valued at the most. So it's just, yeah, that's why I think this story about sorry, I got the Houston cough. About Craigslist was so cool. This guy just does customer service, the thing no CEO does. He helps you with your problems. And he does not extract every single dollar he can out of his company. And in today, that's amazing. That is enough to be like a wow. What that's crazy. Drinking the cold brew my wife made at home. I love being home so much. That's what I notice every time I go on the road. But yeah, I hope I hope I did a good job explaining it. I just thought it was such a cool story. I really liked it. This weirdo guy, and I'm sure there's stuff I don't know enough about Craigslist, the founder, I'm sure I disagree with him on some things, but I like that there's somebody out there who made a thing and then just said, this is enough money. I don't need to make way more. And I was thinking about that. Everyone gets so mad at big tech and all this stuff. You never hear anyone be like, who's cool? The guy from Craigslist. But I think he is cool. I think Craigslist is secretly like a guy with just regular person values where he goes, yeah, I made a lot of money. I don't need 10 times more money than I could ever spend. So he didn't, sorry, cough's really getting me. He didn't, he didn't make it crazier than it needed to be. And, maybe more. I'll do like a deeper dive onto the specifics of Craigslist and all this stuff because I thought it was really interesting. But I wanted to get this episode out to you guys, and I really appreciate everybody who comments and listens. And if you're into the garden stuff and this isn't your speed, I'm sorry about that, but I'm trying to just whatever rabbit hole I go down, I'm trying to make it a fun podcast episode. So I got a bunch of cool stuff coming up in Nashville. This week I will be on a bunch of shows. And then next week I'm taping something at the lab at Zanies. So May 21st, if you're in Nashville, please come to that. It's going to be really fun. I'm very excited to tape this. I've been doing stand-up 10 years. I'm going to try to just get a big long set of material I'm proud of and then put it out. So I hope you can make that. That would be great. I hope you like this episode. Everyone who listens, it really is awesome. It makes this thing much more fun for me. If you like it, and you can subscribe and share it and all the review, whatever, all the stuff. I really appreciate that. I just always feel a little guilty bugging you to do it. But if you do it, it's very nice, and I really appreciate it. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I will see you next week.